So the Indianapolis Colts did not have a first-round pick last year, but they did have a second, and I'm talking about in the 2020 draft, not the 2021 draft. And in their second-round pick, they drafted Michael Pittman Jr., who is what this video is going to be about. This was the 34th overall pick, so very early on in the second. It was one pick behind T. Higgins, who statistically did have a better year. Higgins had over 800 yards, Michael Pittman 503 yards, but I thought there was a lot to like about Pittman, and I think he's, to me, proven he can be like, maybe not like an elite guy or a number one guy, but I can easily see him being a number two guy. Like, for example, something like this. It's going to be zone coverage, and this concept, a very simple way to try and beat zone coverage. So it's quarters coverage that Tennessee is in. So basically the way that this works is Indianapolis has their number one receiver, the guy closest to the sideline, just runs deep. And then Pittman, who's the guy who I've circled, he's the number two receiver. He kind of just runs and tries to get into where that gap in coverage would be. As you see, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of Tennessee players, or not a lot of, a Tennessee player could notice this and run over and try and cover Pittman, and that's where things get interesting. Because watch how Pittman, I would say, does a very good job of running this route quickly and gets to his spot where he needs to and is able to make the catch. So a lot of what he does is just getting yards in zone coverage, which I think a lot of people would argue, well, isn't that not necessarily the best? I mean, don't you typically want a receiver who's going to win in man and can beat like number one corners? And ideally, I would say yes, but you can't always have that happen. And a guy who can win against zone is still incredibly valuable, especially with the Colts, who like to run the ball with effectiveness and sort of force you into zone coverage, where Frank Reich is so good at scheming guys up. So the fact that he can win in zone coverage, to me, is not a slight. It's a feature in this Indianapolis Colts offense. Like, watch, here's another example. So the way this play is going to work is that, again, this is zone coverage. It's a cover two zone, and it's, again, a relatively simple concept. What you do is you have one receiver, T.Y. Hilton. He's going to run deep, and that's going to hopefully force another safety to go deep with him. And then, on top of this, what Indianapolis is doing is they're running a play action, which hopefully gets linebackers moving in, and Pittman kind of just goes in between that middle section and deep section and hopefully gets open. So Pittman, he's the guy who's running the route. He's closest to the bottom of the screen, running over the middle. That's where he is. But once this play starts, this is something subtle, but something I noticed and I like is that you could even see this on the last play as well. He does a good job of not cutting right away, not giving away what he's doing. A lot of guys on these types of routes just like to get to their spot quickly, but Pittman's good enough that he can sort of do a good job of running this stem portion of the route without giving too much away. He did run a little closer to the middle of the field, but again, not giving too much away. He could easily be running a go route. You see the safety who's in his area is running back right now, which means that he expects this to be a go route, so well done by Pittman, and he's still fast enough that he can get over. Like, as you see, then he cuts over the middle, and this is a pretty easy throw for Rivers to make. It also helps that Pittman is 6'4", so there's just a bigger target in these zone coverage type plays. So again, it's not just that he's, getting schemed open. He's doing his part to make sure he gets open. Yes, Frank Reich is very good. Yes, Frank Reich helps put him in a position to succeed, but Pittman also helps Frank Reich be put in a position to succeed. Like, you have stuff like this, where this one I think is a good example of showing just kind of the baseline stuff I look for in a number two receiver. So, and again, I keep saying number two receiver. He might be forced into that number one receiver role. The jury's kind of still out, although Indianapolis doesn't really use a number one receiver role the same way like other teams do. And I should be clear, when I'm saying number one receiver, I mean like in terms of the depth chart, not necessarily in terms of, where you're lined up on the field. But anyways, on this play, it is man coverage, but you see how the Tennessee defender who's covering him is playing pretty far off, and since you can see Pittman's route, you know that this is a win before the play even starts for Pittman. This is a play that should work for Indianapolis. And like, watch, right when this play starts, Pittman this time is not going too crazy about which route to run. He's just getting to his spot, which, again, that's important, is knowing when you should just sort of get to your spot and get open, and knowing when you should go the extra mile of try to pull off a fake. If you're already open, don't get too crazy with it. Just turn around and look towards the quarterback, let him hit you. That's what Pittman is doing. And he's fast enough to continue running forward, gain enough separation, despite the fact that the Tennessee player read it very well, but Pittman just got to his spot quicker. So again, he runs, he doesn't even run a sub 4.5, but it looks a little faster on tape, and it might just be the speed mixed with the size works so well. It really does work well. The measurables, is if you're not going to be necessarily a speed demon, he's still really fast and is big, so it kind of works out that way. And then you have something like this. So again, this play is, we're going to go back to some zone coverage right here, and the reason is I want to talk about this play and talk about, there's just some guys who seemingly find ways to get a bunch of yards through these kind of plays. So it's zone coverage, quarters coverage, and you see the way this play works. Both of Indianapolis's receivers lined up to the offense's right, which is towards the bottom of the screen, are running deeper routes to push the Green Bay defenders further deep. Then what you do is you have Pittman along with a tight end who are going to kind of run over and get into that middle area. And with them kind of being a little bit staggered out a little bit, one deeper than the other, Pittman's running the shallower route. Then one of those will probably get open. It's unlikely Green Bay will be able to cover both of them unless somebody reads this play very quickly and comes all the way over from Indianapolis's left. So good concept. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to be in part Frank Reich highlight reel along with good stuff from Michael Pittman. And so watch how right when this play starts, Pittman gets to his spot very quickly again, but watch how he's going to be able to just then take off in open space, and he's going to end up getting a touchdown on this play. That's pretty impressive. And again, is that, Frank Reich kind of helped him out a little bit? Sure, but guess what? Frank Reich's going to be there next year too. So as long as he can run that system well, I think very good. Do I trust Pittman in a different system? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say definitely no. He's clearly a good player. Would I think that he's a great player in other systems? Probably not. But he can do his part in this system, absolutely. And like something like this. So again, want to show one more man coverage play because I talked a lot about how he does in the zone. And I still have to be honest, I don't necessarily see him like on an island, on the outside, just going up and finding a way to win, which is why I say that he's more of a number 2 guy than a number 1 guy, and that goes, both in terms of the depth chart and also just in terms of I kind of like him as a slot guy a lot, although he can win on the outside, but usually it's through, a lot of stuff like this, where it's man coverage, he's running to the inside, running over the middle, the defensive back who's covering him is playing a little bit further back, so again, it's just about get to your spot quickly. You don't have to worry too much about doing anything crazy. There is going to be traffic in front, so all he has to do is just sort of run underneath, and this play should work out. But again, he does get to his spot quickly. I think what the main thing I like about him is he takes good angles, because notice how he then is able to turn around and just picks up a good amount of yards. So again, it's a lot of stuff like that. These aren't the most highlight reel level plays. These aren't anything that's going to wow you too much, but it's still good, and it's something that you want in a team. So a lot of people said the Colts should have drafted a wide receiver this offseason, should have signed a wide receiver this offseason with their cap space. I was one of those people. I still think that that's probably a move they should have made. But there is some talent. I think T.Y. Hilton, he's getting up there in age, but he hopefully still has it and can be good. And you have Michael Pittman as the number 2 guy. That's their hope right here. You have Mo Alley Cox, who can be a good receiving tight end as well. Jonathan Taylor, who can be a good receiving halfback as well. So they have some pieces. And again, Frank Reich's going to scheme stuff up. So I don't think it's an awful situation for Carson Wentz and the rest of the Colts. And I think Michael Pittman's pretty good. I think he's solid. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.